Hey Miranda, how are you?
I'm doing good, thanks. I was confused there first about Luke Kelly being the Empire podcast. I was confused it wasn't the same thing. I have so many interviews to keep track of. I was like, oh no, did I double book? But
No, that's okay. That's understandable. I understand that fighters they get so many interviews. I mean, so actually, that I'll start off with that. That wasn't really a topic that I was going to bring up, but so when it comes to interviews, when you signed with UFC and you got your first fight in the UFC and you won, did you find there was an increase with interviews, or how did that all work out?
very much so, especially like once I get a fight set. Not so much like when I signed, but once I had a fight set up, then it was already getting calls about the upcoming fight, but more so obviously after this debut, once I won, I would say I've set up and agreed to about 70 so far.
Right.
Uh, up cutting some of those out and going down to about 50, but I'm like booked right now with interviews for about 2 weeks of all my free time. So
Oh
it's
no.
just crazy. And so I'm sure in the future I'll be a little bit pickier of who I let interview, but for right now, obviously it's kind of new to me to have most of these interviews. So just trying to get as much exposure as I can with them.
Right. So obviously you don't want to just say yes to some, person that's just starting out, or you don't want to have to, you know,
Come across people who are just creepy and like all they want is a phone call with you. You know what I mean? Like it's not even in a podcast. Yeah. Uh, but I've learned to at least like filter those out. So that's been helpful.
of course. I guess just to go before we go any further, I just want to thank you for taking your time to come on the podcast. First of all, and again, congrats on your win at UFC 254. I don't know about other people, but I was very impressed with your performance. I expected nothing but fireworks from that fight, and we got it. And I gotta say that was probably one of the best female fight or one of the best, I guess, female MMA fights I've ever seen in the long.
Thank you. I appreciate it. The first minute, was kind of rough getting into it. I think just from the normal jitters and stuff, even though I didn't feel like I had those as I went in, but it just kind of took me a minute to get my timing and gauge that and get comfortable enough to let my hands go. And then after that, I was hoping I put on a show for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. That's what it kind of appeared to be at the beginning. It looked like you're just trying to figure out, it's a new show, it's the big show, and it's, you're under the lights, you're in the UFC. So I think for sure, being a newcomer, that would definitely take an effect on you for the first little bit. But it's not been your first. It hasn't been your first rodeo, like you've got to fight Pearl Gonzalez, who was previously in the UFC. So you've had a little bit of a taste of fighting people that have been previously in the organization.
Yeah, I definitely already kind of knew where I stood, if that makes sense. Like,
Mm.
I saw how Liana did against some of the UFC fighters. I saw how Pearl did against some of the UFC fighters. And then
Mm.
even the girls that go straight from Invicta into the UFC, I kind of get to see where their talent stands. So I was very confident going into this fight. They always are like, well, it's a bigger promotion. They may look good in the little pond, but once the little fish gets into the big pond, not the same story. But I've never trained for Invicta. I've never trained for a specific fight. I train every day for that title fight in the UFC for the best in the world. Um, so I don't try to gauge my skills based on how crappy or good my opponent might be. I gauge my skills against myself. So I was hoping I got to see some of that potential in that fight. And according to Dana and John Anik and some of them, I did myself proud. So hopefully next time I get to go in there and actually put hands on them a little bit more and not have a doctor stoppage that some people are saying is controversial.
Yeah, and that's the only thing that sucks is that yeah, you still get that stoppage, but it's not a stoppage where you either knock the girl out or you smit her or whatever. So it does kind of suck that way because then you get the fans that are like, oh, that's not a real stoppage. So, well, it's like, well, I mean, I don't know. Like, I guess that kind of brings into my next question with that fight. So they stopped the fight in the after the first round. Um, after she got that cut on her nose, did you kind of see the turning point in that fight? Do you think that all you had to do is keep striking in that spot and then she give up, or how did this fight go the way you perceived it to go? Or
I definitely didn't expect to like cut her with an elbow and have a doctor stoppage, but I was hoping to put some damage on her in that first round. Like I was very in my striking going into this fight. After I threw that first elbow that I threw in the fight, and you even hear DC commentating, and then my coach say, like, it's there, it's there, just wait for it. It was kind of something we had trained because she puts her head down and ducks in with her punches a lot. So her head's kind of right there to just hit with the elbow. And after I touched her with the first elbow, I landed it 2 other times, and it was just connecting every time. And I was good enough to have landed it straight in the middle of the nose and cut her open. But as far as the game plan part of it, it was just to put damage on in that first round. And I didn't really get started when I saw the elbow. I think I got started. I saw her lip bleed the very first time I even touched her. So I was like, all right, my punches are damaging her. I know I have a lot of power for a female fighter,
Mm.
um, just from sparring with guys in my gym and from seeing what I do to other females I have sparred with. So I wanted to go in there and kind of scare her. And I felt like she was kind of backing up a little bit until she was forced to not, and even then I was able to land combinations that kept her at bay.
Well, and it's interesting that you bring that up because you talked about after the fight that you didn't just want to show that, hey, I'm a ground, I like to take the fight to the ground, not just a ground fighter, but I got the skills up in the hand. So, and I think you mentioned, why would I, if I can take it to the ground and not take the damage, why not?
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't really get the fighters that are like, I love getting hit, I love feeling damage. Like I personally want to be longevity. Like I want to be in this sport for a little while longer without having brain damage. I'm trying to get my education and have a job afterwards and be sane. So if I can keep from getting my face messed up, like you see the little baby black eye, and that's the worst injury I've ever gotten in the 20 fights I've had.
Oh my god,
So
lucky.
like I literally just take people down and finish them. Like, what's the point in getting punched in the face if I can keep from it? And I'm sure I'll have some damaging fights out there, but I try to play smart and aggressive all at the same time.
And that's kind of why I don't understand why people give Curtis Blades so much shit. Like, I mean, his game plan is utilize his wrestling and use his strikes on his wrestling. That's his specialty. And I don't
I,
understand people give him shit for it. Like, hey, if you don't have to take that damage, if you don't have to get knocked out by Ngannou twice in your career, then why would you?
I understand it just because it's an entertainment industry. That's what it's for. And fans are out there as much as I hate it, as much as other fighters hate it, to see violence. That's why people get fight of the night, even if it's a shitty fight, if they're all bloodied up and lasted three
Yeah.
whole rounds. I'm like, that was a crap fight. Why did they get fight of the night? Because they swung at each other and it was bloody and the fans loved it, like that's all it takes. Where let's say I finish a fight in 30 seconds and it's swift and clean and efficient, people are like, yeah, whatever, it was lucky, and move on, and that's just how the fan base is. So you've got to find ways to make it exciting, make it it's not just a sport, it's that entertainment all sports are. So you got to make it exciting and make your name known by doing something that stands out.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like I say, you just when it comes to the fighters, I think you have your job to do. You need those wins, and you got to do what you got to do. And if it comes out entertaining, great. If not, well, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. But kind of so you got your taste of fighting at UFC 254, but obviously they always have the fight week, they call it. So what was your experience like? How'd you like the experience being in Yas Island?
I'm thankful to have been there. It was my first time going overseas at all outside of the United States, so that was pretty cool. In addition, obviously, there's the weight cut, but it was the best weight cut I had ever had.
Oh,
I went out there lower weight than I had ever been. I was working personally with a nutritionist, and she was guiding me through the whole fight camp. So I only had about, I think it was 12 pounds to go when I hopped on the plane, and usually I'm 12 pounds to go a couple days out,
mm-hmm.
which I make weight, but it's hard, and I have a lot of muscle for a female, so I cut a lot more weight than most females, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And but this time, like day of, I only had about 5 pounds to go, and
Oh,
um, to cut that, I didn't have a hard cut. It was a great cut. I was in the best shape of my life. My nutrition was on point this time. My cardio was on point. My technique, my speed. All credit to my team, my coaches, and my nutritionist, and even sponsors that were helping me with meals and things. So I went in there having a time of my life that whole week. I was able to go and chill at the beach, at the pool, enjoy the hotel, enjoy the people that were there. And even though it was COVID-19, so we didn't really get to venture around the city, it was kind of nice to not have a huge population around. So we were just basically all the fighters there and the staff that was around us got to kind of enjoy the experience and soak it in.
Yeah, and I would imagine that would be nice, you know. And I've been told, I just did an interview with oh geez, I feel bad for forgetting his name, Brian Barberina. He fought back in September, and he mentioned, you know, it was nice, you know, it was nice being out there, but he said the heat was just unbearable. How bad was it when you were there?
I luckily was told by everybody, I got so lucky because of the week that we went. It was pretty cool. There was a little bit of a breeze and it was like 80 degrees instead of 110 like most people had to deal with. So the weather was perfect for me going out riding bikes and everything. And you get a little bit of a sweat on the beach, but not much.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. So now, obviously, you know, you had to take all the COVID tests. I actually asked Brian the same question. It didn't seem to bother him, but when you were doing your initial weight cut that week, did the COVID test and all those distractions, did that ever bother you with your weight cut at all? I mean, I know you said you had a good weight cut, but
Yeah. Not until day of, which was really actually frustrating. And I don't know if UFC had anything to do with it or if they weren't in charge of it, but they actually had us go do our COVID test at like 7 to 7:30 a.m. when our weigh-ins were at 9 a.m. So luckily for me, I had made weight before that COVID test was necessary, but I'm sure a lot of people were like still in the baths and the saunas, like trying to cut weight when we were supposed to go do COVID.
mhm.
Because I know down to get ready to go to weigh-ins, they were like, "Have you done your test?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did." And they were like, "Good. It should have been done at this time." And I was like, "Yeah, I did it already," but a lot of people hadn't. And I was like, "Yeah, of course not. What do you expect? Like, who wants to get up out of the middle of them weight cutting, half dead, and go do a COVID test?" But the other parts of the week, they had it pretty scheduled out and it told us ahead of time, so it was organized, got it done real quick, and luckily we got to choose if we wanted it stuck into our brains or into the back of back of our throat. So
Yeah.
it was a little bit easier on us.
Did you get a chance to choose which method, or did they just?
Yeah, yeah. They were like, "Which one do you want?" And I was always like, "I don't want you to poke my brain, so just do the swab in the mouth."
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. Yeah, I know that's what Brian said. He mentioned. He said, "Yeah, they gave you a choice." I'm like, "Oh, well, I wish that was the same for us." I
Yeah.
don't think where I'm from, you don't get a choice. Yeah, so I hope I never have to get a test. I don't want somebody.
Yeah, I never got a choice while I was in the United States, but over there, luckily we did because there were 8 tests, I think, total from the time that we got out there to the end.
Hmm. Yeah, I couldn't imagine getting that many tests done. So, um, yeah, but anyway, so you know, you got your, you know, you've had experience fighting in Invicta FC. You've been doing it since I think about 2017. So seeing other girls having that success from to the UFC. I mean, Perlin Gonzalez. I'm not sure if she transferred there to UFC, but there's been other fighters coming from there to the UFC. So did you just know that it was just a matter of time that it would be your chance to get in, or how with the wins that you had?
Well, I had so many wins, and I think I'm fairly easily promotable, whether it be just my name. I'm young. I'm finishing girls. I'm not just making like unexciting, like I make it to decision every time. Like most of my decision fights are the ones I lost, and they were close. And it was just because I didn't pick up the pace and move. So even the losses I had weren't dominant losses. So I knew I was going to get the call up eventually. I gotten several calls before I finally got my contract with the UFC, short notices, contender series, which I didn't want to do because I felt like I was already past that point.
Yeah.
Contender series in my mind is for up and coming fighters who haven't gotten shown what they're about. And I was already in getting ready to fight for the title for Invicta. Like I was in title contention even when I fought Pearl. Once I beat her, there was no like denying me the title fight. And then COVID happened, so my opponent wasn't able, since there were flight restrictions, to come fight. So the next obvious choice was the UFC, and finally we were able to get that fight contract, pass one fight, and get in. I was actually scheduled to fight on the first card that got canceled, the Woodley card, for
Oh,
COVID. I didn't get to tell about it because the contract was nulled as soon as the fight was canceled. But yeah, I was supposed to fight back then. Then in June, I was supposed to have my debut and unfortunately got set back. But I think everything happens for a reason. And I ended up getting a fight on the best card of 2020. So I'm not whining.
yeah, yeah, no, yeah. I mean, the best card. Yeah, probably at the whole year. Yeah, like I personally, I wasn't sure how I was gonna feel about the card. I was like, like this card's too good to be true. Something's gonna happen. Like either fights are gonna fall out, or it's always something, right? But everything just stuck together the way it did. And honestly, if I had to say, I loved every single fight of this entire card.
Yeah.
And one fight,
Yeah, they were good. And the only thing that is bad about being on that good of a card is it's so hard to get a fight bonus and stuff. I was like, I felt like I had a great performance and talked to some people that were like, oh, you should have gotten it. But at the same time, there were so many arguments for so many of those fights that I was like, I'm not gonna get it. I was on the prelims, like, I was watching the fights and I was like, be boring, be boring.
come on.
Yeah, exactly. But unfortunately, I didn't get that lucky. But they were really good fights. I was honored to be in the presence of all the people there that are just inspiring and inspired me as I was coming up in the sport.
Yeah, yeah. So after your fight, did Dana White get to say anything to you? Did you get a chance to talk with him about anything? Like,
Yeah, so it was pretty interesting little bitty backstory I'll tell real quick. I saw him in the hallway first time I ever met him, had my mask on, was frustrated that I forgot to take it off during the picture and everything, but got a picture with him and he was like, and who are you? And I was like, I'm Miranda Maverick, I'm debuting on the card. And he was like, oh, okay, good luck. So he didn't even know who I was, right?
yeah,
And so then I fought, got done, of course, just instinctually was like, where's Dana? I talked to Dana. And obviously he heard me in the back. Well, I went to the back and was getting ready to have an interview with Megan O'Leary, and it got like interrupted, like stopped all of a sudden. It was like, Dana wants to talk to you. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I walked over to Dana and he just had a little conversation with me, but it ended with me being like, I wish I could have gotten to show you more. Like, I wish I wouldn't have stopped it so that I could show all my skills. And he was like, well, we saw plenty. You're going to be scary for the division. And that was basically it. So it was pretty cool. Like, he was really encouraging and super excited about it. So yeah. And I was like, you remember my name now? And he was like, yep. Yeah, I do. So yeah, it was just an amazing opportunity to be out there and meet all the people that I did meet. Like DC was joking around with Michael Chiesa, or he's gonna hate me for I always mess up his last name, but you know who I'm talking about.
yes.
And yes, and then Bruce Buffer and John Anik and all of them. So it was a pretty neat experience, and we've decided that Michael has to remove his Maverick tattoo because now his doesn't count anymore.
No, did he change his nickname or?
No, we were just tormenting him that now I have it, so he can't be using it.
Well, I mean, I like the whole fear of the Maverick. I love that. How'd you come up with that in the first place?
So embarrassingly, obviously my last name's Maverick, so that was cool. So it was just Miranda the Maverick, right? That's what it started out as. And people were always like, the Maverick, Maverick. And I was like, no, it's just the Maverick. Like, it makes more sense.
Right.
But my coach was always tormenting me about being way too nice to my opponents.
Mm-hmm.
I was just always too nice because I'm happy all the time and I don't really look like I'm a fighter outside of the, going into the organizations. He was like, you need to make your opponents fear you when you go on to weigh-ins and all this. And so somehow somebody was like, yeah, fear the Maverick. And then it just became the thing and stuck. So
yeah, I think I love that name. It kind of goes with the vibe that you've been putting in since you got signed into the UFC, and brings me to my next point. I mean, so in your, I think I'm not sure if it was your post-fight interview. I might have to rewind here, but you mentioned at some point that you want to be the next big thing. So I mean, obviously, if you want to get to the gold, but be more. Can you kind of elaborate on what you meant? Do you want to get that be like that double champ kind of life, or do you just want to get the gold and you want to just dominate? Like what did you mean by that?
I just want to dominate the division and get to where I am champion,
Mm-hmm.
eventually win that championship and be up there. I want to be this young person that doesn't just have hype behind her and fail once I see the bright lights, but get up there and just move my way up to the top after the next couple of years and hopefully get that shot against Valentina and show what I'm made of. There needs to be new blood, so to speak, within the division. Like, everybody just keeps fighting for those top 5 positions and then failing once they get to the very top. And we need new people, new young guns coming up in it.
And what you're trying to say is you kind of want to be that one fighter that's going to be separating from the rest of the pack. Like, you want to be that one that's going to get to that top and be the one to say, no, Valentina, move aside.
Yeah, basically, I want to be able to steal that belt from her, and I have all the respect for Valentina. She's an inspiration to the fighter. She's an inspiration to me, especially her striking ability is amazing. But I feel like nobody's tested her skills in a wise manner or used fight IQ when they fight her a lot of times. And I think she has a lot more openings than people expose, especially in the ground game. And I hope I can move up the ranks and kind of topple her crown. And people are giving me shit because I'm saying it all right away. And they're like, you need to calm down, cool your jets. But I've given myself a goal and I've reached almost every other goal in my life that I've set. And I'm not saying I want the fight right this second, but I think as I work my way up over the next couple of years, I'll be there. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I'm already ranked in the top 30 in the world. And after there's 5,000 fighters within our division, that's really pretty close to the top.
Well, and the thing is about that, why I hate when fans give people shit for that. Like, I know a lot of people are giving that Hamzat Chimaev guy, that guy, he kind of, it looks kind of like Khabib's like crazy cousin or something. But like with him, with him though, like a lot of people are giving him crap, like, oh, he's already trying to think that he's gonna be the champ. But like, I guess like with any fighter getting in the UFC, I think once you get in that UFC, you are in that kind of talks of being a potential champion one day. And I think as a fighter, if you don't think that you can beat your opponent, if you don't think that you can get that title, what are you doing fighting?
That's exactly my point. Like, why are you here if that's not your goal? Like, are you just trying to, I want to be good. I want to just stick around for 20 years and play around in the top 20 in the world. Like,
exactly.
If you're not trying to be the best, then why are you in a sport where you're putting your life on the line every minute that you're in that cage?
And I guess that's why, like, you see some fighters that, go for the title a couple times and they're just not successful and they have to go up weight because it's I guess it's a case of, it's that weight class is not working for you. Maybe you have to try something that will work for you. And, so I guess, like, yeah, if you don't think that you can win, what are you doing fighting?
Yeah.
So I guess, how excited are you to be in a division where, with the flyweight division, it took a while for it to really form, and now you're starting to see the fighters, you're starting to really see who's breaking out in that division. And how excited are you to be able to get in that division and showcase your skills?
I'm super excited. I think it's the best and easiest. When I say that, I mean, like, there's not as many people in it. It is a newly formed division, so I think it's a lot easier to move up the rankings within it. I tried 115. That didn't work for me. I'm too big for it. 135, I'm too small for. 125 is perfect for me. I feel like I have the power and speed on a lot of the girls and even the technique now. And now it's just learning the maturity when I go in there and fight to be composed from beginning to end. And if I use my skills to the best of my ability, I know I can be the best if I work towards it.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this division, it's just so exciting. Like, I hope I get a top 15 in just the next fight. I think it can be a fast rise for me. Or if they want to keep testing my skills against people that are newer, that's fine too. Like, I'm ready for any fights, but my goal is to be at the top.
Yeah. So I guess that kind of brings up to my next one here. So, you having such an impressive win. So, you say you kind of want someone in the next top 15 for your next fight. So is there anyone that you kind of have your sights set on, or anyone that you might like to get your hands on next?
My dad usually guesses pretty right. We've already put in word with Mick Maynard and stuff to try to get me a fight set up, a fight matched. He thinks it's going to be Montana De La Rosa. We'll see. I would even, and I know this sounds far-reaching and people will probably make fun of me for it, but Kaylin Chukagian, I think, would be a great matchup for me. She's way up there, but I just see my skill set as being is pushing her to a different level. And she's already put talks of retiring. I think she should give a young person a chance, to go up there and kind of make my mark if she's going to be on her way out.
I think that would be a great fight with you and her. I mean, I guess first off, before I go any further, someone told me that, oh, this Miranda Maverick girl, because, I talk with my boys and we talk about all the fights and we kind of predict what's going to happen. And they're like, oh, there's that grappler Miranda. I said, grappler. And I know that you were a newcomer, and they said, yeah, I think she's some grappler. he's going to fight this other grappler. I think it's just going to be a grappling match. It's like, you just watch. And I'm so impressed with your stand up. So that kind of brings me into the ask you. I think like myself, I would be excited to see that fight with Caitlin Chikagan. I think you both have that very technical striking, and I think that would be a great kind of like chess match kind of fight. I think.
Hopefully so, and I think my grappling is much stronger than hers.
Oh,
I think if it went to the ground, she would have a lot on her plate. But she's ranked so high, you know, and I realize that, so that's why they would say, oh, that's far reaching or whatever they want to say about it. But I would be so ready for that fight. I would take it in a heartbeat and be excited to be there. So I hope she would consider that. I hope UFC considers that kind of thing. But maybe just because of the ranking difference, that wouldn't be an option. But I hope it is. I hope it is before she retires. I'd love to have that fight.
yeah, and I think and I think that's her hole in her game is the ground game. I mean, I'm not saying that she can't try to defend.
It's a hole in a lot of people's games, especially in the 125-pound division, I feel like.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the issues that I think that's something that is in discussion with any organization, MMA in general. Is I think wrestling is the one key compound thing that you need to know very well in that sport, because every fight starts with standing up. Anybody has at any given Sunday, someone can knock anybody out. All it takes is the right punch. It can make someone can make a mistake, one little slip, and it's goodnight Irene. But I mean, when it comes to wrestling, it's a totally different ground game. Um,
Yeah,
and
there is no luck on the ground. There's literally no luck on the ground. If you get to the ground and you go against somebody, and you see this in literally jujitsu, if you want to separate MMA, you want to separate the striking from it, and just talk about jujitsu, I can go in and beat someone much bigger than me, that literally knows nothing about the ground game. To where in striking, if you put me against somebody even 20 pounds bigger than me and they know nothing, they can go in there and beat me up if they wanted to, you know, if they hit me hard enough and make me dizzy or whatever else. The ground game is just another thing. And if you don't have a background for it or technique enough to defend against it, you're going to get your butt kicked in a fight. And then your striking doesn't matter anymore.
mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Now, what do you think? Okay, so I mean, we've already kind of talked about Valentina. I think it's kind of the elephant in the room of the division. Everyone's gonna want to talk about her, about how to beat her. So, what do you feel someone needs to do to beat her?
Well, even the people who have tried to wrestle against her or do takedowns, and they talk about how great her takedown defense is. But part of that's because usually the takedowns only happen in the second or third round against her when they're already dead tired.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not. She's fresh and they're tired. So nobody has any way to even put her against the cage or put her on the ground. So I think people need to go in there faster and test her ground game. For all I know, she's black belt level and amazing on the ground, but nobody's really tested that out.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem. Is like what happens is she puts this she and no disrespect to any of her opponents. I mean, respect to anybody that goes in the cage with the champ. But the problem is you watch the skill between her and all these other girls, and like I said, props to them for taking the fight. They might be great fighters, but you look at Valentina and her stand-up Muay Thai versus their striking, and they're just getting outstruck. And she's putting the pressure on, and then because they're getting so tired, they're like, oh, well, I'm gonna have to try to take her down now, and that's what you mean. Like they need to be able to do that early, because okay,
Yeah.
stuff that takedown, at least they might take her. They might take her rhythm off a little bit, and then use that strike and capitalize on that.
Right. Instead of doing desperation takedowns, they need to set it up kind of thing. And I feel like that's what happens, honestly, in a lot of girl fights. I don't want to take away from those of them who are really good wrestlers, but you see a lot of people who you can tell are not, and they just are getting hit so hard or so much. They're like, ah, crap, I got to do something. So they go for a takedown, and it's very poor technique. And I feel like that's all I've ever seen against Valentina.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but I mean, you can't take away that bounty. She's just damn good. I mean,
Oh, absolutely. And people go in there with this intimidation factor too, you know. And
unfortunately. Um, Yeah, so I guess, what like how fast do you want to get back into the UFC? Like, are you looking at the end of the year, or do you just want to take the end of the year off? Like, what's your plans?
Hopefully, you guys will see me in early December. We're trying to get a match up now. If not, hopefully by 2020, the end of 2020. But as soon as possible, I'll be ready early December.
Awesome. Well,
And I'd be ready earlier, but school's in the way.
right. I mean, there's only so much you can do about that, but just one more. Is there anything that you want to say for the flyweight division?
I think I've already said everything I need to say. I'm there to make my mark. I've kind of put out there what I have, what my abilities are. I've got the grappling, I've got the striking, I've got the wrestling, and the strength and speed and technique are always improving in between fights too. I'm not just stagnant. I'm not just going to go in there with what I had last fight. I'm always learning something new. Hopefully, this debut kind of showed that. So watch out. I'm coming. I'm trying to make it to the top of the rankings as quick as I can.
That's awesome, Miranda. I just wanted to thank you for coming on the podcast. I appreciate. I know you said you got like 2 weeks booked of interviews, so I do appreciate you taking your time to come on. And good luck with your next fight. And I hope you do scare the division.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.